All right, welcome everybody. Hopefully my mic is going to work here. This is new, I feel like Brittany. Okay, so I am Brady Nielsen, and part of my description and who I am is really important to this discussion. I am a semi-retired or rage quit information security professional. I had 20 years of IT and information security experience. I started in a secure computing environment in the Army. I worked for Gonzaga University. Anybody in here a Gonzaga fan? No? Anybody know who Gonzaga is? Oh, that's a very sad one. Yay. All right, I worked there for quite a while. My last job as an IT security professional was at a publicly traded company. We were a retailer, manufacturer. We had over $1 billion in annual revenue. And 3 months after I left, they went bankrupt. Not my fault. I had the opportunity to go teach. And one of the reasons that I selected to do that was I felt like I was losing. I decided that I wanted to train 100 replacements to go out there and make a difference. When we were trying to hire additional staff, it was very difficult to find anybody with any experience or any training at all in the security world. And this isn't probably a new story for any of you. But I've been a tenured faculty for 4 years now at a community college. And community colleges are a little bit different. We do hands-on, it's vocational training. It's been interesting. I've dove headfirst into teaching. I love the academic world. As I said, I worked at a 4-year school, and it was an opportunity for me to really embrace academia. So when I started teaching as a full-time tenured faculty member, I joined the curriculum committee. I went to workshops on how to discuss pedagogy and how to deliver classes and all those things that I had never really done before, even though I already had 2 master's degrees. It was things that I had never really ever taken into consideration. It was stuff that was new. So as part of my journey, I kept in contact and stayed active in my local information security community. And I started hearing the same stories over and over again, that we have difficulties finding people with the skills that are needed. So, as I mentioned, I'm from Spokane, and Spokane is not Seattle. Don't talk to me about the weather, it's completely different. There's a mountain range that separates Spokane and Seattle. Seattle gets rain, we get snow. As a matter of fact, the mountain range in between us is closed usually about 10 days out of the year, so we can't even drive to Seattle. It's about 300 miles between my house and the Space Needle, to give you a little bit of an idea. And that's actually very material to my experience because we have to compete with Seattle. Seattle's pay scale is about 2 to 1 when we talk about Spokane. Spokane greater area is about 1 million people. Seattle proper is about 750,000 people, and that doesn't include any of the outlying areas. Seattle has Amazon, Microsoft, Boeing. We don't. So as I'm talking with local employers, our local utilities company posted a security analyst position for almost 300 days before they got a qualified applicant, and that person said, sorry, I already took a job in Seattle. So it became very apparent after I'd been teaching for a couple of years that we have a serious problem. And I already knew that, but as I started to pay attention regionally and nationally, it's obvious. And this is the problem. And if you haven't already heard, there's a huge shortage in staff with cybersecurity skills. And I'm not just talking senior security analysts with 10 years experience. I'm talking about a network administrator. I'm talking about even help desk. Anybody that has cybersecurity skills and awareness is helping the cause. So ISACA says, hey, there's already 1 million shortage. We're looking at a 2 million shortage in the next, 2 or 3 years. About every month there's a new study, survey, or paper that says this. If you don't know that there's a shortage, talk to me later. I'll get you a list of about 1 billion links that reinforce this. So one of the things that I hear as the description of what they are is information security, InfoSec, cybersecurity, information assurance. I hear digital warfare. I've heard that quite a bit in where I'm going at, and I've heard several keynote speakers in the last couple months say that we're really under attack. This is really World War III. There just aren't human casualties. The casualties, data connectivity, it's identities. We're at war. So that's kind of the mindset that I took when I decided that I wanted to give this presentation. As we look at this, before I get started and I really start talking about what I'm proposing, is there are a lot of brilliant people and organizations out there today that are working on this problem. I am by no means a pioneer. I am not unique in the fact that there's work that needs to be done here. So my intent is not to say anything bad about all the people out there that are already working on this in their organizations, because they've started, and that's what we really need. But really, they're starting, and the focus is going to be that their ideas and their needs are what they're focusing on. There's not really anyone out there today who's looking bigger picture of where are those extra bodies we need coming from. And that's really the problem that we're taking a look at. Now, I would love at the end of this conversation for somebody to stand up and say, hey, dummy, can't you Google? Somebody's already got this picture. Somebody's already got the idea. Somebody's already got this fixed. Shut up and go home. Please, somebody do that for me. Okay, so the logical fix, four-year schools. Anybody here with a four-year degree from a four-year school? Nice. Okay, so it's the logical fix, right? Of course, who else would we need to fix this problem but to teach more people as the four-year schools? There's definitely great opportunity there, but when we talk about four-year schools, the reality is they're all a buzz about STEM, science, technology, education, and math, and to them, technology is computer science. And I spent a few minutes Googling what kind of resources and what kind of graduation rates, and I discovered that roughly 50,000 computer science graduates in the US a year. If I go back to the previous slide, there's a million shortage in information security already, and I also stumbled onto the fact that those computer science graduates mostly end up in app development, and they already also have a shortage. So we can't rob Peter to pay Paul. So I, as a faculty member at community colleges, I love what we are doing. The reality is if I go talk to a mom or a dad, or if I go talk to somebody who's looking for career advice or wants to change their job, community college is where you go to get the first 2 years of a four-year degree. That might be where you go to learn to be a firefighter or a beautician. Nobody says if you want to be an IT or a cybersecurity, you go to community college. And community colleges have done this to themselves. That's how they market it. That's how they make their money. That's how they get their funding, is in those 2-year transfers. They're really big on things like dual enrollment, where they get high school kids that will take a college class and get credit. That's an awesome advantage. It's a great opportunity, but it doesn't really help us put cybersecurity professionals in the chair. Okay, so if it's not schools, it's the government. And I just came from Community College Cybersecurity Symposium last week in Portland, and I'm amazed at the programs that the government has funded. National Science Foundation, the NSA, partnered with NIST, and Department of Labor is working on apprenticeships. There's a lot of stuff going on, but my example of how effective that their programs are is the Cyber Corps. They have a Scholarship for Service program, which is awesome. They give 100% cost to the students. They pay for all their schools, all their academic needs, their books, tuitions, fees, and they pay them an annual stipend of between $22,000 and $40,000 a year, depending on what type of school it is. The only requirement is when they're done, for every year that they get tuition paid, they go into public service. They work for a federal, state, local, tribal government. I think they've spent $50 million in the last 5 years. I think they have less than 200 graduates. That's not very cost effective, and frankly, 200 is a fail for what we need when we're talking about millions. So they have great intentions, they have great programs. Really what we're talking about, though, is small numbers. I've been reading about industry trying to fix their own problem, and I saw some great programs last week. IBM has an apprenticeship program. Google has an introductory training that's available for free. Cisco has outreach programs that tries to reach all kinds of people. But when it all boils down to it, it's they're addressing their needs. So we've got our traditional trainers. We've got, the ISC Squared and ISACA and SANS. I don't have a SANS logo on there. They do great, but they only train the existing people. Nobody walks down the street one day and has an aha moment and says, I need to spend $4,000 on a SANS training so I become a cybersecurity professional. It just doesn't happen. You don't Google, how do I become awesome, and SANS shows up and you can write a check for $4,000. It doesn't happen. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm saying their focus and their purpose doesn't meet the workforce needs. Also in there that I don't have logos for, that's an honorable mention, ACM and IEEE are awesome. They've done a lot of work, but when it comes down to it, they're creating resources for everybody else to use, but nobody's using them. That's part of our problem. Okay, so how do we fix it? That's the whole meat and potatoes of my presentation. I still consider myself an information security professional. I still really lean that direction. I just happen to be working in an academic world, and as weird as it is, that's where I go. So the real issue is, how do we fix it? We have to fix it ourselves. There's nobody else out there that's going to do it anytime soon, and it's going to get really bad before it gets any better. They're going to have some horrible events occur before any other entity steps forward. So obviously my proposal is going to be, we're going to use technical schools and community colleges as the fix. And the reason that I lean towards them is they're not the ivory tower. They don't have the tenure structure. They don't have the advisory committees. The community college is all about meeting community needs. And while I talk about information security as a greater issue, it's each local region that needs more bodies. And that's what community colleges are there for. The focus at a community college is hands-on skills. It's vocational, it's not theoretical. It's a great opportunity. So one of the other advantages is you don't need a PhD to teach there. And to develop the program, you're able to, with a 4-year degree, or even no education, formal education whatsoever, with industry experience, you might be able to step in and get the ball rolling in your environment. So what I'm proposing, what we really look at is tools for the trade. If we're going to start to develop a program or a methodology to train people off the street and to market it to people who don't know what cybersecurity is, we have to build it. And when I started to really contemplate how to do this, I had flashbacks to building my first incident response plan. And the first time I tested my incident response plan and I wasn't in the room, and I said, okay, I'm on vacation, we have an emergency, we have a critical issue, here's the binder. And they all kind of looked at me like I was stupid because it's my job to respond to the incident, right? And my response was, I'm not available. You can't really schedule me being here when there's a hack or an issue or denial of service. And I realized that I had to dumb it down. I had to make a playbook that anybody at the help desk could open up and go to page 1. And that's what we need to do. We need to build a playbook that anybody out there can pick up and run with. Part of the issues we run into is that each region has its own needs. As we build and work towards this common goal, there's lots of opportunity, there's lots of need, there's not lots of demand. But the key is that we have to get people in each region to step up and do it. And if we have a group that works together to build that template, it's a whole lot easier. And I can tell you, having come in from the information security world to become an instructor and diving in head first, I built curriculum. I built a 4-year degree. As a matter of fact, my school this year, we just completed our first year of a bachelor's degree in cybersecurity. which most people are like, at a community college? How do you do a 4-year degree? There are 24 states that offer a bachelor's degree at a community college level. And part of that has to do with meeting demand. So as part of my proposal, I'm looking at a working group. And I was here 4 years ago at, it was really the second year of I Am the Cavalry, and I was really inspired by what they were doing, and I think it was awesome, but I really wasn't able to participate and contribute much, but I took mental notes. And as I started to reflect on the problem that we have with the shortage of technical skills, their model came to mind. And while I kind of feel a little bit like I'm mimicking what they're doing, our problem is very similar to the problems that they have. We have a huge problem. I just saw today stories. There was an MIT technical journal that says, hey, Black Hat has a whole new track about burnout and mental health and cybersecurity. The problem is real. And I had saw that when I Am the Cavalry started, and I was kind of hoping that they'd made advances and that problem's not there. One of the key stressors is that there's not enough bodies to do all the work. And I'm definitely one of those examples where I got tired of patching on Saturday night and being there Monday morning to make sure it worked and to pull a 60-hour work week and get phone calls at 3 a.m. No way. It just, they literally couldn't pay me enough. They offered me more money to stay, and I'm like, no way, I'm going to have a heart attack. I'm going to die. You're going to kill me at this job. And that's a reality that we need to work with. So part of the problem is nobody out there is really looking big picture. There's individual spokes in the wheel, but if we don't do it for ourselves as an information security community, nobody's going to do it for us. We're going to be stuck dealing with whatever crap they throw at us. And I can tell you, having spent a lot of time around academics in the last 4 years, you don't want what we put out. My replacement, the person that I replaced, would have been teaching Windows 98 if they would have let him. If we allow them to determine what we're doing, they're going to be teaching out of a 5-year-old textbook. They're not going to understand any of the labs, and it's all going to be theory. And it's going to be theory that's no longer relevant, and you're going to get replacements who show up and they're duds. And what good is a dud? I might as well go down to wherever and just pick somebody off the street and say, hey, here's 80 grand a year, come sit in a desk. Because that's what we're looking at. One of the keys of success that I think is going to be here is that we have to identify a generic set of skills that covers an introductory level, and then meeting individual demands of industries and regions. And it's very difficult for any one person or one group to tackle that because depending on how small we break down the group, we're talking about thousands of potential skills. And there isn't anybody out there that's particularly good. And I go back to my local power company, and when I talked with their information security director, he says, there's probably 100 people in the U.S. that actually truly have the skills that I need. Everybody else we hire, we have to train. And I'm like, well, could we do that for you? He says, well, I only hire 2 a year. I'm like, well, that's not really cost effective, but if I take a look at all the power companies across the U.S., if we built the materials for somebody to learn how to do that, it meets a demand that's not huge, but it's very necessary. Oh, so what I'm looking at, commit. We need you. And I got to tell you, I may be up here talking and I may be presenting, but I don't know if I'd be the right leader. I'll take the reins and do what we need to do because it needs to be done. And I've kind of already started that on the academic side, but I'm really looking at industry participation because that's truly where my heart lies. So lots of opportunities, lots of struggles. I don't know if any of you have ever worked in an academic environment. 2 years is quick to them. 2 more years without reinforcements is bad enough as it is. And one thing that I definitely learned by taking a look at all of the money that the government's throwing out there, just because we build it, no one will use it. we have to be very vocal, we have to be aggressive, we have to be localized. I don't know if we necessarily need to be coordinated, but the tools need to be there. What we need to do is look locally, but have a repository for everybody to be able to go, hey, you know what? My region needs help. Let's go to whatever working group this is going to be named. I have a couple of ideas, but I don't know, they might be stupid. From here, what I'm looking for is people to say, I'll contribute. Whether it's a couple hours a month, a couple hours a week, I don't know. I don't know anybody that's ready and willing to quit their full-time security gig to become a teacher. Frankly, the pay's not worth it. It's really not. And you can volunteer your friends. And this probably won't be the only place that I'll present this idea. But at some point in time, if I don't get enough support from industry, I'll just be like, hey, I tried. I did my best. But what I'm really looking for is contact me after this. I've got a lot of academics that are willing to contribute, but without industry support, it's going to be another failure. So, with that, I'm still not sure. Thank you. So if anybody has any questions, I'll be willing to field them. I'll hang out here afterwards. I've got a stack of business cards. Fortunately, this is only a 30-minute presentation, so we've got lots of time. There isn't anybody in here for a while. So other than that, thank you.
Big round of applause.